Some women fight to be heard. Others never had that luxury. That morning on The View, no one expected a confrontation. They expected inspiration. What they got instead was silence sharp enough to cut glass. Asterisk, the studio lights were warmer than usual, casting a soft glow across the table. Outside the windows, a muted winter landscape stretched into the distance, bare trees. Pale skies, calm. Inside, everything looked composed. Almost too composed. Asterisk, Sharon Stone sat upright, shoulders relaxed, hands folded lightly around her mug. She wore a deep olive dress, understated yet elegant, chosen by someone who didn't need to announce her presence. Her eyes moved slowly as she listened, absorbing the room rather than claiming it. Asterisk, across from her, Meghan Markle leaned slightly. Forward, her posture was alert, engaged, controlled. Every gesture measured, every nod intentional. When she spoke, she did so with confidence. With the practiced cadence of someone who knew how to hold an audience. Asterisk, at first, everything flowed as expected. The hosts asked Sharon about longevity in Hollywood, framing it as resilience. The audience murmured appreciatively as she spoke, not dramatically, not emotionally, but with quiet gravity. Asterisk, I stayed. Sharon said calmly, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. Asterisk, Meghan smiled politely. Too politely. Asterisk, when it was her turn, she took a breath that felt prepared rather than spontaneous. For me, Meghan began, survival meant refusing to be silent. Refusing to accept the narrative written about me. Asterisk, heads nodded. Cameras tightened in. Sharon listened without interrupting. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened slightly, not in challenge, but in recognition. Asterisk. There's power in telling your story loudly, Meghan continued, her voice growing firmer. In owning it before someone else does. Asterisk, the air shifted. Asterisk, Sharon didn't respond immediately. She took a sip of water, set the glass down, then spoke no louder, no faster. Asterisk, there is also power. She said evenly, in enduring without applause. Asterisk, the table went quiet. Not tense, not yet. Just still. Asterisk, Meghan's smile froze for half a second before she tilted her head. Of course, she replied smoothly. But silence hasn't always protected women like us, has it? Asterisk, the word us landed heavily. Asterisk, Sharon met her gaze directly for the first time. Not confrontational. Assessing, no, she said. But neither has performance. Asterisk, one of the hosts shifted in her seat. Another raised an eyebrow. Meghan laughed, softly one. Of those laughs meant to disarm, but it didn't quite land. Asterisk, I'm not sure I see storytelling as performance, she said. I see it as survival. Asterisk, Sharon didn't argue. She waited. The pause felt longer than any speech. Asterisk, survival, she said at last, her voice, even, almost gentle. Is what you do when there are no cameras? Asterisk, a ripple moved through the audience, no gasps, no claps, just a collective inhale. Asterisk, Meghan straightened slightly, fingers interlacing tighter than before. With respect, she said, not all suffering happens off-screen. Asterisk, Sharon nodded once. True. But not all strength needs to be seen. Asterisk, the hosts exchanged looks. This wasn't a debate. It wasn't an argument. It was something more. Dangerous a comparison, no one had spoken aloud. But both women felt pressing between them. Asterisk, I think minimizing someone's voice because it's public can be its own kind of dismissal. Meghan said, her tone soft but edged. Asterisk, Sharon didn't flinch. And I think, she replied quietly, that confusing visibility with depth is how pain becomes currency. Asterisk, silence. Real silence. Asterisk, the cameras lingered on Meghan's face as she absorbed the sentence. For the first time, she didn't respond immediately. Her eyes flicked away for a heartbeat, then back. She smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. Asterisk, a producer's voice whispered through an earpiece. A host cleared her throat. The show was supposed to pivot to something lighter, something safer, but something had already shifted. The table no longer felt like a platform. It felt like a line drawn down the middle. Asterisk, Meghan leaned back, crossing one leg over the other, reclaiming composure through control. Her tone softened, but steel remained beneath it. Asterisk, I think it's interesting, she said, how often women are praised for endurance after the fact. Silence becomes noble once it's survivable. A few audience members murmured in agreement. Sharon didn't look away. She waited until Meghan finished before replying. Asterisk, endurance isn't noble, she said. It's necessary. And necessity doesn't care who's watching. Asterisk, Meghan smiled again, sharper this time. But visibility changes systems. It opens doors. Asterisk, it also creates stages, Sharon replied. And stages invite expectations. Asterisk, the friction was no longer subtle. A host attempted a half-joke to lighten the mood, but neither woman took it. Asterisk, I didn't choose to be visible, Meghan said, widening the circle to include the others at the table. Visibility came with the consequences I faced. Asterisk, Sharon's response was immediate, not reactive. None of us choose the consequences, she said. We choose what we do with them. That landed harder than anything before. Meghan's fingers tightened around her mug. She set it down carefully, aligning it precisely with the coaster, as if keeping order in small things could steady larger ones. Asterisk, I spoke because staying quiet nearly broke me, she said, her voice firmer now. And I won't apologize for that. Asterisk, no one has asked you to, Sharon replied, her expression softening only slightly. Her voice dropped not in volume, but in temperature. I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking for honesty. The word hung there. Meghan blinked once. About what? Asterisk, Sharon didn't raise her voice. She didn't gesture. She didn't perform. Asterisk, about the difference, she said, between telling your story and reshaping it. Asterisk, the audience inhaled. A camera operator adjusted focus. Somewhere off-screen, a producer mouthed for them to wrap it up. Asterisk, Meghan gave a short, incredulous laugh. Are you suggesting I fabricated my experiences? Asterisk, Sharon held her gaze. I'm suggesting that memory is powerful, and power edits. Asterisk, the temperature in the studio seemed to drop. Asterisk, Meghan straightened fully, shoulders back, chin lifted. This wasn't conversation anymore. It was defense. Asterisk, I lived it, she said. I don't need permission to speak it. Asterisk, Sharon nodded. No, but when your story becomes a brand, it stops being just yours. Asterisk, the hosts froze. One opened her mouth, then closed it. Another leaned back, arms crossed. Asterisk, that's unfair, Meghan said sharply. You don't get to define my motives. Sharon leaned forward just slightly, and you don't get to pretend motives don't matter. Another beat passed. Asterisk, Meghan Markle exhaled through her nose, composure cracking at the edges. I find it interesting, she said, that women who endured quietly are often celebrated, while women who speak are questioned. Asterisk, Sharon Stone didn't hesitate. I question everyone who profits from pain, she replied, including myself. Asterisk, that stopped Meghan cold. For the first time, she didn't have a response ready. The audience felt it too, that rare moment when the rhythm breaks, when practiced cadence falters. Meghan glanced toward the hosts, then back to Sharon. Asterisk, this is becoming personal, she said. Asterisk, Sharon's voice remained calm, almost kind. It always was. Asterisk, a producer's voice crackled through an earpiece. A hand signaled for commercial. The hosts tried to steer the conversation away, but Meghan shook her head. Asterisk, no, she said. Let's finish this. Asterisk, the room held its breath. Sharon didn't interrupt. She simply waited. And in that waiting, the balance tipped. Asterisk, producers never liked it when a segment stopped behaving. Everything on the show had a rhythmal laugh line, a warm anecdote, a respectful pivot. Even arguments were meant to be manageable, sharp enough to trend, soft enough to survive a commercial break. This wasn't manageable. The lights felt brighter, the air thinner. The audience, usually cued to clap, now listened like witnesses. One of the hosts glanced toward the camera as if hoping it would blink first. Asterisk, okay, she said carefully. Let's keep it respectful. Asterisk, Meghan nodded. But her eyes stayed locked on Sharon. Sharon's posture hadn't changed. She wasn't leaning in to win. She sat like someone who had already decided she didn't need to. Asterisk, people always want to reduce women to how they handled it, Meghan said, voice steady but tight. As if survival isn't enough. As if speaking isn't enough. Asterisk, survival is enough, Sharon replied, her tone softening slightly. Speaking is enough, but speaking doesn't erase responsibility. Asterisk, responsibility, Meghan repeated, tapping her fingertips lightly on the table as if counting time. For what? Exactly. Asterisk, a host tried to step in, offering a lifeline. Meghan raised a hand without looking away. No. Let her say it. I want to understand. Asterisk, Sharon nodded once. Responsibility, she said, for what you set in motion. The words landed between them like a stone dropped into still water. You're implying my words have harmed people, Kagan said. Leaning back, arms crossing, subtle, defensive, unmistakable. Asterisk's words can, Sharon replied evenly. And when your words become headlines, they can do it faster. Asterisk, my words were my truth. Asterisk's truth doesn't mean complete, Sharon said. It means believed. Asterisk, the audience shifted again, murmurs, uneasy silence. A few claps started and died, as if hands forgot which side they were on. Asterisk, are you accusing me of manipulating people? Meghan asked, voice sharpening. Because I spoke about my life. Asterisk, Sharon shook her head slowly. I'm saying that when your life becomes a narrative, you start editing yourself into the hero. Asterisk, Meghan inhaled slowly, pulling restraint back into place. A host tried again to interrupt, but Sharon continued, her gaze steady. Asterisk, we all do it, she said. But most of us don't do it on a global stage. Asterisk, Meghan gave a short laugh, disbelief rather than amusement. So now you're the authority. On global stages. Asterisk, I'm the authority, Sharon replied. On what happens when the applause fades. Asterisk, it didn't sound like an insult. It sounded like a warning. Asterisk, I didn't come here to be interrogated, Meghan said, her voice cool but trembling at the edges. Asterisk, then, you shouldn't have come to a table built on questions, Sharon answered. Quietly, asterisk, questions are one thing, Meghan shot back. Judgment is another. Asterisk, judgment comes when answers don't match the framing. Sharon said. A hairline crack appeared in Meghan's composure, 2 quick blinks, clipped breaths. You keep saying framing like I manufactured my pain, she said. Do you have any idea what it took to stand up after everything? Asterisk, Sharon paused, looking down briefly before meeting her eyes again. When she spoke, her voice had sharpened. Asterisk, I know what it takes, she said. And I also know what it looks like when someone uses pain like currency. The studio went cold. How dare you? Meghan whispered. Asterisk, I'm not saying you didn't hurt, Sharon replied steadily. I'm saying you learned how to spend it. Asterisk, you don't get to measure my trauma, Meghan said, her voice rising. You don't get to decide what I'm allowed to do with it. Asterisk, no, Sharon said. But I can ask one thing. Asterisk what? Meghan snapped. Asterisk Sharon leaned forward slightly, like a door opening. Asterisk when the cameras are off, she asked, who are you? Without the story, Meghan froze not because she didn't understand, but because she did. For a long second, the studio watched her search for something unscripted, something unpolished, something without a headline attached. Her lips parted. A frantic whisper sounded in her earpiece. Commercial. Now. But she didn't move. She stared at Sharon, deciding whether to answer or explode. Asterisk, Sharon didn't blink. She had asked a question that couldn't be spun. No one could remember the last time the show went this silent. Not the polite silence before applause, not the awkward silence after a failed joke. Asterisk, this was different. The studio felt like it had lost control. Meghan's hands stayed wrapped around the mug, her knuckles pale as producers buzzed urgently in her ear, calling for commercial. She didn't blink or acknowledge them. Across from her, Sharon Stone hadn't moved. She wasn't smiling or gloating, if anything. She looked tired. Asterisk Meghan finally spoke, her voice lower now, stripped of polish. You don't know who I am when the cameras are off. Asterisk Sharon didn't rush her. That's true, she said calmly. But I know who people become when the cameras are on. Asterisk something shifted. Not loudly or dramatically, but with a quiet crack, like ice giving way under pressure. Meghan set the mug down too hard, coffee spilling over the rim and staining the glossy table. Asterisk, this is exactly what I'm talking about, she said, her voice shaking. Women tearing other women. Down for entertainment. Asterisk Whoopi leaned forward, hands raised. Okay, let's pause. Asterisk no, Meghan cut in sharply. I've paused my whole life. Asterisk, the audience gasped. A producer in the back signaled frantically to cut. Joy tried again, softer this time. Meghan, nobody's attacking you. Asterisk Meghan let out a short, bitter laugh. You invited me here, she said, sweeping her gaze across the table, and let me be cross-examined like I owe the world an explanation. Asterisk Sharon shifted slightly in her seat, steady and composed. No one owes the world, she said. But if you build a platform on confession, don't be surprised when people listen closely. Asterisk Meghan stood abruptly, startling the audience. Chairs creaked as a cameraman hesitated, unsure whether to stay wide or follow her. Asterisk, I won't. Sit here, Meghan said, her voice rising, and be told my life is a performance. Asterisk Sharon remained seated. Then don't perform it, she replied. Asterisk the words hit hard. Meghan stared at her, eyes glassed not, crying, not calm, but unguarded. Asterisk, you think this is easy? Meghan asked. You think living under scrutiny doesn't change you? Asterisk, I think it does, Sharon answered quietly. And I think some people learn to live without it, and some learn to live from it. Asterisk the tension in the studio felt unbearable. Whoopi stood, trying to regain control. All right, we're going to take a break. Asterisk, but Meghan was already stepping away from the table. No, she said. I'm done. Asterisk, she turned toward the audience, toward the cameras, toward millions watching at home. This is exactly why people stop telling the truth, she said. Because the moment you do, someone decides they know you better than you know yourself. Asterisk Sharon watched her, with something closer to resignation than anger. Or, she said softly, because the truth doesn't always like the mirror. Asterisk Meghan froze for a brief second, then walked toward the edge of the set. A producer rushed forward, whispering urgently as the camera followed. She stopped just before exiting and turned back. Asterisk, you want to know who I am without the story? She said, her voice trembling but unhidden. You'll never know, because you don't deserve access to it. Asterisk with that, she stepped off the stage. The studio doors closed behind her with a dull, final thud. Asterisk silence settled over the room. The kind that doesn't ask to be filled. Whoopi exhaled slowly, rubbing her temples. Joy stared at the table. Sunny looked straight ahead, lips pressed tight. Sharon Stone remained seated, calm, looking at the empty chair Meghan had left behind. Asterisk, I hope she finds peace, Sharon said quietly. Asterisk off camera. The director finally called for commercial. The screen faded to black dot. Asterisk clips began circulating online before the episode even finished airing. Headlines split the internet. Some defended Meghan fiercely. Others praised Sharon's composure. Most replayed the same moment again and again. The pause, the stare, the question that stopped everything. Asterisk, and somewhere in a quiet car leaving the studio, Meghan stared out the window, replaying a single sentence she couldn't escape. Asterisk, who are you without the story?